I'm resting now. I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I'm resting when I get in my car and head home. I'm resting when I get home. I'll rest tomorrow. I think this whole narrative of, LeBron needs more rest, or I should take more rest, or I should take time here, has become a lot bigger than what it actually really is. I've never talked about it. I don't talk about it. I don't believe in it. We all need more rest. I mean, this is a fast turnaround from last season, and we all wish we can have more rest. But, I'm here to work, and I'm here to punch my clock in and be available to my teammates.
All right, Max, you're a bandwagon Lakers fan, so I'll start with you. I'd actually have more respect for you if you became a Nets fan at this point, but that discussion's for another day. Max, do you think the Lakers should be worried that LeBron is playing too many minutes at this point in the season and at the age of 36?
Of course, because LeBron James is in uncharted territory. Of course, Lakers fans should be concerned he's playing too many minutes. Dave McMenamin, who does excellent work on ESPN.com, go check it out. Since the start of the month, before the start of this month, LeBron James was averaging, I believe it was 43rd in terms of number of minutes played per game. That's not so bad. He's, a lot of great players play a lot of minutes, understood. That's not top 10 or something like that. Lakers are doing fine. Since the start of this month, it's 11 games. Since the start of this month, he's leading the league in minutes played. Now, the reason that's an issue is because every single time LeBron James takes the court, he's setting a new record, sort of like Tom Brady in the NFL. No one has ever played at his level, having logged this many minutes, this many miles on an NBA court. Ever. Never. Not even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's never been done before. So every time he takes the court, we're learning something new. And what it seems and it's natural, AD goes down and you pull even harder. The sense with the team is we need more from our leader. This is why, Stephen A., you and I debated this yesterday. Does LeBron need to do more? Sometimes less is more. Sometimes when you pull too hard, it can be counterproductive because it's not like LeBron normally slacks off. He does everything in his power always to help his team. So now we're asking him to do even more, or really, as he's putting it, he's asking himself. Not a good idea. Number one, because it seems the team and his own performance regresses slightly as his minutes go up. Understandable. And number two, knock wood, Stephen A., you want to avoid a catastrophic injury. Given the number of minutes this dude has already played in his career, given the fact he never really has an offseason because he plays in the finals every single year, given his usage rate and everything he has to do, not to mention his off-the-court responsibilities, which are more than any superstar in any league on the planet Earth. Yes, I am worried, as a Lakers fan, about LeBron James playing too much.
Well, normally I could just dismiss what you're saying because it's the sport of basketball, and I don't know if you should have a license to talk basketball as much as you do personally. But, it really, in this particular instance, and Molly will laugh at this because I'm allowed to lean on football, Max Kellerman, to have fun with you this morning. I appreciate your take. I appreciate you starting your take off at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific out here in L.A. I appreciate you starting the show off this way because you've got me inspired. Because, Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you were sitting in that chair. Max Kellerman started on First Take on July 25th, 2016. Max didn't think I would remember such a thing, but I do. And on that particular day.
It is kind of unbelievable you remember the exact date.
The day you stopped winning debates. Of course you remember.
Absolutely, right? So Max
the last
Kellerman,
debate you won must have been July 24th.
Hold on, don't interrupt me.
Part of him died that day.
I did not interrupt you, Max. I did not interrupt you. And, of course, you win debates because you take 9 different takes, so 9 different sides. So that's how you ensure that you don't lose. But here's the deal.
Only seems that way, brother.
July 25th, 2016, that was the day that Max Kellerman said that Tom Brady was over a cliff. Or would be in short order within the next 18 months. Over the next 5 seasons that we have been on the air, Tom Brady has went to four Super Bowls and won 3. And this is the expert that wants us to take into account how, you know what, age, attrition, father time are something to be concerned about. You would think, Molly, that this man has learned his lesson about sitting there and writing folks' epitaph a little bit too early. You would think that Max Kellerman would recognize
about
greatness and how there's an aberration that occurs every now and then, and that there are people that defy the odds. Even Max Kellerman has ultimately came out and said there are certain people who defy the odds, which brings us to LeBron James. Who's hurt for the Los Angeles Lakers right now? That would be Anthony Davis. It would even be Dennis Schroeder. It would not be LeBron James. LeBron James has not missed a game this year. LeBron James is 36. He's in his 18th season. We've had Russell Westbrook missing games. All right, of course, Klay's out for the season. Kevin Durant has missed games. And by the way, Kevin Durant, who's fresh off an Achilles tear, is averaging 35.7 minutes a game when he plays. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that when you look at LeBron James, his minutes are not something to be concerned about, because if there's one thing that LeBron James has earned over more than anything else he has earned in his career, it's to be trustworthy when it comes to his own body, his own conditioning, what he can take, what he needs, etc., etc. Be concerned about LeBron James' three-point shooting since the month of February began. Be concerned about that. Certainly be concerned about his free throw shooting, because he missed another key pivotal free throw last night. And obviously he's a career like 73, 74% shooter. He ain't the most reliable shooter from the free throw line in the world. Be concerned about those things. But to be concerned about his minutes and to be concerned about his health, where there are a litany of examples to point to with dudes who are younger, but somehow, some way, can't stay nearly as healthy as this guy continues to stay throughout his illustrious career. Throughout it, I would say let's all pump the brakes, relax. If LeBron James says he's okay, he's okay. If he says there's a reason to be concerned, then we need to be concerned. He has earned that because his reputation, his history, and his resume demands it.
Well, you got jokes, but there is truth to what you say in terms of giving LeBron the benefit of the doubt.
There's always truth to what I say.
Both with Tom Brady, and I was wrong on the cliff prediction with Brady, obviously, but I was just using all of human history versus the odds that Tom Brady would defy all that by this margin. He did it.
And that's what you're doing with LeBron.
Yes. That's right, and LeBron has already done something like what Brady is doing, but that doesn't guarantee the future. Let me give you a couple examples. Let me give you one notable example. The last Lakers great on this level was Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, also straight from high school, also didn't suffer through major catastrophic injuries through his career. Took fanatical care of his body, experimental treatments and nutrition and workouts, and was able to play season in and season out at an absurdly high level on offense, and the dude played defense, both. And I was in L.A., Stephen A., on the air on L.A. radio doing Afternoon Drive when Kobe Bryant staged essentially a mutiny against Mike D'Antoni, because what D'Antoni was doing was not working with the Lakers' dream team. Remember the Dwight Howard, Steve Nash, Pau Gasol, Kobe Bryant dream team? They're supposed to win the whole thing. They weren't going to make the playoffs. It was so disastrous. Kobe said, forget all this. I'm running the show. This is how we're doing it. I'm going to play over 40 minutes a game. And D'Antoni, I don't think, felt he had the standing to take Kobe out, especially once Kobe basically took over the team. And he was playing like 40-something minutes a game for a couple weeks. And I was on the air saying, wait, careful. And then the Achilles went. Now, Stephen A., it's not the same thing. I'm not pretending this is the same thing. LeBron's not averaging 40-something minutes a game, but he is, since the start of this month, averaging the most minutes in the NBA. And the fact of the matter is, the performance of the team is regressing, even without AD. You'd say, well, take AD out. You'd expect a little bit more, and they're getting a little less. And you have to wonder at this age, number one, is it having that impact on his own and the team's performance? Number two, what's it going to mean for the finals or for the playoffs when they roll around? And number three, the risk of injury.
First of all, you're wrong. Mike that wasn't Kobe just doing mutiny. Mike D'Antoni was more than willing to allow Kobe to play those minutes. It wasn't because of cachet. That's how Mike D'Antoni rolled. Go look at Steve Nash. And so was I. And I spoke to Mike D'Antoni about it. Mike D'Antoni made no apologies for the minutes that Kobe Bryant was playing at that particular moment in time. He did not mind at all. That's what Mike D'Antoni does. Go look at Steve Nash. Go look at his resume with Steve Nash. Go look at what he did. Go look at the minutes Amari Stoudemire was playing before his knees gave out. Mike D'Antoni, the Sean Marions of the world and others. Mike D'Antoni had no problem riding. That brother would drive you into the ground. It's about now. You didn't practice heavy with Mike D'Antoni because he knew you were going to play those minutes.
Whatever, he still played the minutes.
That's not the point. The point is you said it was Kobe, and I'm telling you that's Mike D'Antoni as well because Mike D'Antoni's philosophy
well, I have reason to know it was Kobe, but go ahead.
Excuse me. You don't have reason to know. You don't know what you're talking about. That is false, okay? It wasn't just Kobe. It was Mike D'Antoni. Okay. Absolutely. You don't know. I'm telling you, you don't know. The fact of the matter is this is what Mike D'Antoni does. That was his reputation. That is what he has done. And in terms of LeBron James, as it pertains to Tom Brady, what I'm saying to you is this. Because Tom Brady was that aberration, I'm saying, why can't you look at LeBron with all the evidence there for you to say, he's the aberration. He's not the one to apply your usual logic towards that father time, attrition, and all of those things.
That's just the injury part.
That's LeBron James. How come he can't be trusted?
You're focusing on the injury part. What about the performance part?
What do you mean, what about the performance part? The brother had 31 and 13 last night.
LeBron James, it's not that he can't ball, Stephen A. I'm talking about his performance now and in the future. His efficiency on offense right now is the lowest since his rookie year. It's still better than almost everyone else. He's LeBron freaking James.
But he's been struggling for the last month.
Since his rookie year. And he plays into the finals every year.
But he just played. This was going on even before Anthony Davis got injured. It's not because of Anthony Davis being injured.
For me.
I'm sorry, Molly. Go ahead.
All right.
It's declined since then.
Let's all take a moment here. This was a lot hot out of the gate on a Tuesday morning. I'm into it. We're going to revisit this a little bit later in the show, so you guys will have more time. I want to get to the team that LeBron is a fan of. Your Dallas Cowboys, Stephen A. Smith. It's a big day for them. Today's the day Dak can get franchise tagged for the second year in a row. The deadline to franchise a player is March 9th. Stephen A., if this is Dak's last year in Dallas, should it be, if he's playing under the franchise tag again?
I'm sorry, Molly, I couldn't hear your question. Could you repeat that, please?
No worries. The question didn't really make sense. Do you think this should be Dak's last year in Dallas if he's franchise tagged again?
I think it will be, and I think it should be, because I think it's just the latest piece of evidence that shows, for some reason, Jerry Jones is just averse to making a long-term investment in Dak Prescott unless it's completely under his conditions. Excuse me, I was getting ready to sneeze. That's really the bottom line. And for me personally, here's what I come down to. It's consistent with what Jerry Jones has done since Dak Prescott arrived in this league. People keep forgetting that. There's a pattern here. When Dak Prescott first arrived in this league as a rookie, he was playing lights out in the preseason. Tony Romo was enduring questionable health, and people were contemplating whether or not he'd even play anymore. And Jerry Jones held on for dear life in respect of Tony Romo returning. He was very, very, very reluctant to give the reins to Dak Prescott. And people try to forget that, but I never have. And I said to myself, excuse me, what is this about? Tony Romo clearly was gifted, but in the same breath, he had a special relationship with Jerry Jones. Nobody denies that. Everybody knows it. And Jerry Jones was reluctant to give the realms to Dak Prescott. Well, he ultimately had no choice because Tony Romo would retire and obviously become a star in the broadcast booth, which we all recognize. Dak Prescott has been balling ever since. He's 42 and 27 as a starter. He's had nearly 5,000-yard passing seasons, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions coming into last season. All right, based on what he did in 2019. He's got him to the playoffs twice. He's won a playoff game. Okay, this is a guy that clearly is the leader of the franchise. He's basically the umbilical cord to Jerry Jones in terms of the Colin Kaepernick issues, the social justice issues, the manner in which he conducts himself, and is the face of the Cowboys franchise. He has been as close to a model citizen as it gets for the Dallas Cowboys. And still, Jerry Jones can't reach an accord with them. And think about this, Max, and I'll hand it off to you by saying this. Think about this. It's not like Jerry Jones, oh my goodness, don't want to sign him. Oh no, it's that Dak Prescott wanted to sign for 4 years coming into last season. Jerry Jones wants him for 5. Now Dak Prescott wants him for 3. Jerry Jones wants him for longer than that. I know salary cap situations, CBA negotiations coming up, all of those things play a role. But my God, it's like backwards and stuff. Anything it takes to not commit to this dude on terms that he has earned is what Jerry Jones seems hell-bent on doing. The Dallas Cowboys will pay for this. They will pay for this dearly. And, as far as I'm concerned, it's just further evidence why they'll never win a Super Bowl in Jerry Jones' lifetime.
This should not be Dak's last year in Dallas if they franchise him because he's in the driver's seat. Right now, Dak is sitting pretty. By the way, when you talk about all that stuff with Dak, the only thing I can come up with, Stephen A., is Jerry Jones keeping the Cowboys' name in the news because heavens knows it's not because they win Super Bowls, right? So this is a way to get us talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Think about this. Ed Werder, I thought, put it beautifully on Get Up. I think it was last week. Jerry Jones and the Cowboys so wanted that extra 5th year of Dak Prescott. They so wanted that they wouldn't take 4 years to the point where they traded it for 1 year of Dak Prescott. You want 5 so bad that you take 1 over 4? It's insanity. Now consider this, the franchise tag. He made $32 million almost guaranteed. When he got hurt, didn't matter. That money was guaranteed last year. He's about to make $37 million on the franchise tag this year if they play him. There's 70 over 2, right? He's well over $50 million next year if they were to franchise him again. There's your $120 million over 3 years. It's $40 a year just like he wants. What can Jerry do? It's worse than that for Jerry Jones, Stephen A., because you prorate those signing bonuses. The bonus is the guaranteed portion of the contract. So all that guaranteed money, you could say, well, this is over X number of years. It's this much guaranteed. You can't with a franchise tag. It all counts against the cap. You think the Cowboys are going to have 53, 54 million counting against the cap for their quarterback next year? No way. But you know what else it means, Stephen A.? His number goes up. Because if they franchise him this year and they don't have him to a long-term deal, next year he's like, you want to franchise me again? Go ahead. That'd be 54 million or whatever it is, please, just for 1 year. So now what's his price for a 3-year or a 2-year deal? Well, if you're going to get over 50 for this year, now a 2-year deal is going to cost the Cowboys guaranteed over 100 million for 2 years. So why would that go anywhere? Remember how Kirk Cousins made off with all those franchise tags? This is that on steroids. Dak is sitting pretty right now.
Listen, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. The point is that at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that, I lean on what Jerry Jones has been doing since Dak Prescott arrived in the NFL. He's never fully embraced this guy. The most glowing words we've ever heard about Dak Prescott from Jerry Jones is when Dak Prescott broke his ankle and was out for the year. And you knew he was out for the year. So you were sad for him and you gave him a lot of love at that particular moment in time. You certainly didn't give it to him before or prior to that time. And we know that Dak Prescott has earned a long-term deal. We know that he has earned a contract commensurate with the Carson Wentz, the Jared Goffs of the world and others. And we know that Jerry Jones to some degree has offered that. But to want to lock this man in, just think about it. You're Jerry Jones. What are you, 78 years old? 78 years old. You haven't won a Super Bowl in the last quarter century, okay? You got about 3 playoff wins on your resume in that span. And you're sitting there and holding out on a guy because you want him for 5 or more years as opposed to the 4 he wants to sign for. That's the reason. At age 78, a quarter century removed from winning your last title, that you holding out on this guy. Tell me what type of sense that makes. That makes no sense.
Yeah. And Let me wrap this up by piggybacking on what you just said. So Goff and Wentz, guys, obviously drafted ahead of him. Both have since been traded, and Dak has a better career QBR than both of them. But we're not done with the quarterback situation, especially free agents, because we got two big names still available. That would be Cam Newton and Jameis Winston. Both could be on the move. Which one would you rather have? We will discuss that coming up. Both former number 1 overall picks, and the Super Bowl champs have a lot of free agent decisions to make. So which pass catcher should Tom Brady fight harder to keep in Tampa Bay? This is tough. Antonio Brown or Gronk? We get it. All right, so we know many teams around the league are considering a change at the most important position in football. Cam Newton is one of the many free agent quarterbacks after his one-year deal in Foxborough expired. Cam was asked on the I Am an Athlete podcast about his future as a starting quarterback.
I hear all that, bro. Like, I ain't never been a favorite. Going into last year, is he healthy? I just want to finish healthy. Now it's like if I'm able to learn his system, like, come on, bro, I can't go out like that. My pride won't even allow me to do that. And you could talk about this, you could talk about that, you could talk about whatever. Listen, bro, there's not 32 guys better than me. Put it like that. So if you're asking me, like, bro, I'm not 32.
That's fair. He isn't 32. Both Cam and fellow number 1 overall pick Jameis Winston are among a group of free agent signal callers. Stephen A., which quarterback would you rather have next season? Would you go Jameis or Cam?
Oh, man. I got to admit it. It would be Jameis Winston. Cam Newton in his career. And I'm not trying to say that it's over. I'm just basically saying last year you threw 8 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Now, I know that has a lot to do with you being bereft of weapons in New England, which is a Bill Belichick problem more so than it is his. I get all of that. But when I look at Jameis Winston, I got the 30 interceptions. I got him putting new meaning to 30 for 30. I got all of that. But the last time we saw this brother as a starting quarterback, he did throw for 5,000 yards. He did throw 33 touchdowns. Now, he was a mistake waiting to happen, and we get all of that. But he was also somebody that could make things happen as well. And so when I look at it from that perspective, we're not saying the same things about Cam Newton right now. He can't run the ball the way that he used to because he's not the athlete that he once was because he's been beaten up, age and attrition. We appreciate what he's done. He's a former league MVP. He's been in the league for 10 years. He's gotten the team to a Super Bowl. We know the talent that he has possessed, but age and attrition can beat you up. And I think that's something that we have to pay attention to. And if what we have to go on is the last time we saw these two dudes as a starting quarterback, you have to ask yourself the simple question, even with the 30 interceptions, do you want to go the route of a Jameis Winston who threw for over 5,000 yards and 33 touchdowns, or do you want to go the route of Cam Newton? That to me is the question. I'm not saying Cam Newton is finished. And I certainly, again, want to reiterate that kid that was talking to him the way that he did, it was incredibly disrespectful, the way that he talked to Cam Newton. You know, most people would never achieve what Cam Newton has achieved in their lifetime on any level. Most people would not do what Cam Newton has done. You show that man the respect and deference he deserves, particularly if you're a high school kid and a football player who may never, ever be the player that Cam Newton once was. But in fairness, you know, to the Jameis Winstons of the world, if I'm comparing the two right now, all I got to go on, Max, is the last time I saw them both throwing the football. Okay. And you know how big I am about that. And I just think that Jameis Winston would be the better option at this point in time.
Well, if you go, look, the answer is Cam Newton. I'd rather have Cam than Jameis next season as my starting quarterback. Now, I'm not even going to go through the career argument, Stephen A., because you're talking about the last time we saw them. What could we expect from them this year? But it is somewhat relevant, the fact that Cam Newton at one point in his career was voted by his peers the year he won MVP and took his team to the Super Bowl, by his peers in the middle of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers' prime. That's the best player in football. Other football players said that. The voters said that. And it was the truth. He was once the best player in football for a year. Okay. When last seen healthy, in an environment in which he was familiar in a normal season, Cam Newton was a better passer than he was the year he was considered the best player in the world, right? Norv Turner was the offensive coordinator. You and I have discussed that. I'm not even going to usually really use that as the basis of my argument, but it's in there somewhere. It should be, unless if you really think he's not finished, then stuff like that is, what's the highest height Jameis Winston's ever hit? Nothing like Cam Newton's. So Cam at his best was a better quarterback. But as you said, the question is, when last seen? This is actually a very good kind of subject, because think about it like this. Tom Brady was in New England. He looked around and said, I can't do anything with this. Got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. So he goes to Tampa because they're so loaded and wins the Super Bowl. Going from first round KO loss in the playoffs to winning the Super Bowl because he went from New England's situation to Tampa's. Now, who are the other quarterbacks who've quarterbacked in New England and Tampa most recently other than Tom Brady? It just so happens to be Cam Newton and Jameis Winston. And what did they do? What was the record of their teams? Because when we look at the numbers and everything, that's just means to an end. Can you lead your team to wins? Actually, they both went 7-9. Jameis went 7-9 in the loaded team that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with. Cam went 7-9 in the team that Tom Brady got knocked out in the first round and left because the situation was no good. And Jameis was healthy when he played in Tampa. Cam came off a catastrophic injury, missed a year, into a COVID year, couldn't practice with his teammates, got COVID himself, facilities were shut down, couldn't practice even more, and still went 7-9. And Stephen A., not only did he go 7-9, he beat a whole bunch of really good teams. So not only is their height in their career, Cam hit a much greater height than Jameis, but most recently, in terms of the teams, like where you can directly compare them, Cam had a better effect on the team than Jameis. Same team Tom Brady left, same record as Jameis, 7-9.
I don't disagree with that, Max. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, I'm watching Cam throw the football, and I've been very, very consistent with this throughout Cam's career. I think he's only thrown more for better than 60% of his passes, only completed better than 60% of his passes 2 or 3 years in his entire career. Okay, he's been in the league for 10 years. He's not an accurate thrower of the football, and that's what I pay attention to. Now, obviously, with Jameis Winston's 30 interceptions, they are what they are. I'm just looking at Cam Newton, and I'm thinking about the years that he was running with the football. Ron Rivera told him to slow that down because, obviously, you're going to subject yourself to unusual punishment, and that's not necessary in terms of the longevity of your career once that's taken into consideration. I'm looking at Jameis Winston. You got a fresh arm. I'm also looking at him being coached by Bruce Arians. Now, we appreciate what Bruce Arians has done this year. We certainly appreciate the staff that he has assembled. We get all of that. But in the end, Bruce Arians has never been confused with being Bill Belichick. And the system that Cam Newton went into plays a role as well, because sometimes with him and Josh McDaniel, who are Super Bowl championships 3, 4, 5 times over, in Bill Belichick's case 8, you got to think about all of those things taken into consideration as well before you make that assertion. And in my mind, I'm just looking at my eyes, and I'm saying in terms of a thrower of the football, Cam Newton cocking his head back, the release not being that quick, his throws not being that accurate, for me, from the quarterback position, as a thrower of the football, I think Cam Newton is an all-world athlete. I've never confused him with being an all-world thrower of the football. And that's just where I'm at with it. In the last scene, I mean, I would have to tell you that, to me, I would think that Jameis Winston has a chance of being a better passer of the football at this point of his career, you know, having so much time to do that, whereas Cam, even though he's only 31, 32 years of age, he's gone through a lot in his career. I don't know if we'll ever see the old Cam again. That's my reservation.
That's fair. That's fair to say, hey, Bill Belichick's not just coaching the quarterback. He's coaching the whole team, and he's the greatest coach of all time. And that gives Cam an advantage, and I get that. I think that's a fair point. And as a thrower of the football, I get it too. Here's the difference. If I could see situations where I think, like Washington, Cam could start there. I don't see any situation where I look and I go, Jameis could start there. I think it's a mistake to start Jameis.
All right, Winston attempted 11 passes in just 4 games last season. We will leave it there, fellas. When we come back, the Super Bowl champs, they got a lot of moves to make. Speaking of the club's organizational strategy and opinions about some players surfaced and received widespread backlash. Mariners chairman and managing partner John Stanton said he was extremely disappointed when he learned of Mather's comments, which were made on February 5th and posted online over the weekend. Max, you're up first. What's your reaction to Mather resigning?
Well, when taken together, when you look at all the comments together, what it leaves is the strong impression that this is not the kind of person you want running your franchise. You know, a CEO, people talk about leadership and this and that, really more than anything, a team president, it's about judgment. It's about decision-making. He showed extremely poor judgment before you get to all the things he said, which each taken individually maybe is survivable by him. He could explain away each one individually, but not all together. Keep in mind, this is a guy who, according to the Seattle Times, over a decade ago, when the HR department apparently reported to him, had 2 different women come forward with allegations and both left with settlements. He not only survived that, he got promoted. By the way, the Mariners have not fared well under his stewardship. In fact, they are one of the lesser franchises in the league over that time. So you have a guy who exercised, with issues in his past, who's exercised extremely poor judgment and who's been a failure at his position. Seems like a good reason to get rid of him. When you really look at what he said, he complained about a player not knowing English well. He's a great human being, doesn't know English well enough. I mean, the player didn't sign up to learn English. He signed up to play baseball. And nevertheless, the player in question took great pride in the fact that within a year, he was conversant in English. So obviously, he's insulted, and obviously a fan base who may also be, where English is a second language, may also be offended by that. Hey, we're doing the best we can. He went one by one over, in kind of offending different players. And he did it in front of a group of people, a Rotary Club. That's where you say these things, including making stories up, Stephen A., which is just bizarre. He just made some stories up, fabricated them out of whole cloth. Why would you do that unless you're trying to play the big shot? You want to regale this crowd. But why would you tell details that you wouldn't say publicly to that group? It's because you feel a kind of intimacy. Like maybe that this group is not public. This group is private. It's just with us. These are the people that I feel comfortable confiding this stuff. Rotary Club? That is how you feel comfortable? It seems like a good reason to get rid of a bad executive, Stephen A.
Well, I don't disagree, and we don't have any kind of disagreement here. He offended a former All-Star from Japan. He offended a prospect from the Dominican Republic, addressing, their not knowing the English language as much as he would have liked them to do. Remember, this is an individual that reached a settlement when he was accused of harassing a female employee. I don't know how long earlier that was. I don't know all the details, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do. What I will say is this. I remember, and I hearken back in situations like this, Max, Molly as well. I hearken back to a situation years ago when the late, great George Michael, God rest his soul, he was a great friend and a great broadcaster out of the Washington, D.C. area. He was interviewing Charles Mann on his sports machine, and Jack Kent Cooke was the owner of the then Washington Redskins franchise and what have you, and he was bringing up the whole Native American thing and how it was offensive. The Redskins' name was offensive to them. And Charles Mann said, in the midst of Jack Kent Cooke just completely being defiant and saying he would never change the name and things of that nature, Charles Mann said, it doesn't matter that it's not offensive to him or to me. The fact that it's offensive to them should be enough for us to modify our thinking to some degree and act accordingly. And I take that, I use that as an example to point to a lot of things that we're dealing with in this day and age. On so many occasions, people want to have a problem with the offended party instead of looking at themselves and saying, excuse me, it's not about me, it is about them. if you're talking about black people, if you're talking about folks, you know, whether you're Dominican or you're Japanese or you're a female, whatever the case may be, if they are offended, why would that not be enough for you to modify your level of thinking, heighten your level of sensitivity, and just be thoughtful enough and respectful enough to recognize the fact that they feel that way should be enough for me to know better. This guy Mather has been an executive with the Seattle Mariners for I don't know how long. What I do know is that they haven't been to the postseason since 2001. That's the longest drought in Major League Baseball. So on the baseball field, you don't have the decency to put forth a competitive enough team to be relevant. But then on top of it all, behind the scenes, you have an executive with this kind of thinking caught on video, spewing these kind of remarks, fresh off of a settlement that was reached because he was harassing a female employee. What the hell is going on? You just look at some of these situations and you just say to yourself, my God, if people in leadership positions, there's a whole bunch of people out there that might think like this. And my attitude is that it's a crying shame. It's a damn shame. But what really gives me cause to pause and heightens my level of concern is the fact that this guy was just stupid enough to get caught. What about the plethora of executives out there that are skilled enough to avoid scrutiny because they don't publicize their beliefs, but they harbor this stuff nonetheless? Who do they employ? Who do they get rid of? How do they treat people they employ? What kind of things do they encourage being disseminated, et cetera, et cetera? It kind of scares you to think that there are people out here who conduct themselves the way that they do and they're leaders. But we know what we've been dealing with for the last few years, and as a result of it, we see, you know, how we've regressed as a nation in certain respects. And I hope that we can get back on the right track and recognize just the importance of being sensitive and thoughtful towards other people and recognizing the fact that just because they may be offended, that should be enough for us to pump the brakes and really modify our level of thinking.
The fact that I think where he was and who he was speaking to is relevant here. The Rotary Club, you know, like a group of basically business leaders. So here are people who employ other people, many of them, right? These are the bosses. These are the entrepreneurs. And in front of that group, he took that as like the in group, where he could let his hair down, so to speak, and really say what's on his mind. And even if he didn't, you know, what he said was, this one hasn't learned the language well enough, or this, but he also made up stories about, he wants to regale them.
Try
he wants
learning
to
a second
impress them
language.
about
It's
a player putting another player in a locker that never happened. So that really, I think the setting and to whom he was speaking is significant here, because when he felt like he was talking to maybe like-minded or a sympathetic audience, then he could say all these kind of things that you would think he would never say publicly.
Molly, your thoughts?
Let me leave you with this. If he was comfortable saying that in front of the Rotary Club, letting his hair down, imagine what he says in his home. It's just a perfect storm. It was too many things. It was time to go. You gots to go. All right, we'll leave it there. So do we. When we come back here on First Take, the Super Bowl champs have a lot of...
If you're not fired up to play in the Super Bowl, then I don't know what else can make you get any more fired up.
Super Bowl 55 will be underway. Pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Rob Gronkowski's got 2 today. Big time pressure on Mahomes. Antonio Brown dives low to make this catch. The Chiefs try to regroup. They are down 21-6 at halftime. To the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown Tampa Bay. There's nothing the Chiefs can do. There will be no repeat. Bucks win the Super Bowl. Tom Brady, you are the man. You are the GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Tom Brady quick to declare that his Bucs will be back trying to make a run at another Lombardi. But guys, you know how it is. It's hard to keep a Super Bowl team back together. Obviously, a lot of free agents, but 2 of them I want to focus on. Huge names. Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown. Stephen A., who would you prioritize if you can't keep everybody?
Believe it or not, it would be Antonio Brown, as crazy as that sounds. And the reason I feel that way is because I think that, number one, Gronk is your boy, and you can get him to alter his demands, whatever those demands may be. Number two, retirement is obviously a part of his plans because he had to get talked out of retirement. In the case of Antonio Brown, and you're talking about a guy highly motivated to resurrect his career and to get himself back in the upper echelon, and his skills are no problem whatsoever. The brother is a star, and we keep forgetting, and I think we've lost track, we've lost sight of how electrifying Antonio Brown can be. Chris Godwin is special. I got it. He's only 24 years of age, and obviously they're going to do what they can to prioritize him or Shaq Barrett. We get all of that. But when you look at Antonio Brown, who's approaching 32 years of age, if I remember correctly, in July, think about the 6 consecutive years of 1,000-plus yards receiving. Think about how electrifying it was. Think about what we mentioned him in the same breath as. We mentioned him as Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham Jr., and cats like that. Antonio Brown was a sensational receiver, and his knuckleheaded tendencies kept him out of the game of football, not injuries. So he didn't expose himself health-wise to a lot of damage over the last couple of years because he hadn't played that much because he was acting like a head case off the field. Now, obviously, that's never been a problem with him with Tom Brady, which is why Tom Brady insisted that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bring him on board. When he needed a bonus, Tom Brady kept throwing him the football, threw him like 10 or 11 passes that game, Max, so he could get his bonus. I mean, if there's one guy that this guy would play for, and you're talking about having one guy for one more season, I'm certainly not saying him and nobody else because Gronk obviously is pivotal. Tom Brady's best friend on and off the field practically and all this other stuff. We get all of that. But Antonio Brown and what he's capable of doing on that football field. I mean, when Antonio Brown is balling, I mean, he's better than Mike Evans. He's better than Chris Godwin. He's better than those guys, at least at this particular point. I can't ignore that upside and what that could mean if he got a full season under his belt, Max. He comes in there not in the middle of the season and plays just 8 games, even though he ends up having the same amount of receptions, 45, as Rob Gronkowski did. Okay? I'm thinking about from day one you got Antonio Brown in there playing with Tom Brady. Lord have mercy. It could be special.
I don't think it sounds crazy at all. In fact, I think on the surface, you would say absolutely Antonio Brown, because you're absolutely right. Even with all those great receivers on the team, if AB is right, it's not close. It's not close. And how about this? I don't care how good Godwin ever gets. He is unlikely to ever be close to as good as Antonio Brown at his best. And here's the scary thing. Who's to say AB is not his best anymore? Maybe he is. You just get back into football shape from the very beginning of the season, in practice, in sync with everybody, and maybe he's still in his prime, which is, by the way, comparable to the prime of anyone. You want to talk about Megatron or Randy Moss or Jerry Rice, Antonio Brown's prime fits right in there with the elite of the elite who ever lived. But if the question is, who should Tom Brady lobby to re-sign, meaning a longer-term deal, then I would actually say Gronk, who's cooked compared to Antonio Brown in terms of, how he looks talent-wise versus his prime. I mean, Gronk is still an effective player, and we saw that in the Super Bowl. But Gronk is not nearly as close to his best as Antonio Brown is potentially to his. So why am I saying Gronk? And it's not just about the relationship Brady has with Gronk and all they've been through in New England and now in Tampa. Stephen A., I don't think AB has shown that he can be trusted on a long-term deal. Yes, and I think the Bucs can probably bring everybody or just about everybody back, so I don't really think this is an either-or. But if you're talking about who do you hand out an extension to, a contract to, can you trust Gronk to give it all, his all on the field, to not be a disruptive force? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. He has a career where he shows you that. By the way, hasn't always been an angel on the field. He's had plays on the field where, well, that was a dirty play. He's partied and stuff off the field in a way that has drawn attention, right? But he hasn't really been a distraction to a team. Whereas AB, we've seen, I would keep AB, yes, but on one-year deals. You bring him back so that he doesn't feel like he has the security where he doesn't have to work for it anymore. Because as we've seen with AB, Stephen A., he has a pattern throughout his career of blowing things up. He's in a really great situation with Brady. He's been fine so far in terms of that stuff, but I would not give him the security which could be enabling for his lesser impulses. I would keep it year to year with AB. Gronk, you can trust. Sign him up.
Well, let me say this. Be careful about what you're saying here about AB. his work ethic has never been an issue, ever. I mean, he doesn't get comfortable. I'm saying he's not somebody that gets the money and gets comfortable and as a result doesn't work. They never said that about him.
No,
So
let me be very clear. It's off the field I'm talking about.
Okay, well, off the field, off season, obviously that's something to be concerned about. But if there's one person, think about it. What player do you know on the offensive side of the ball has ever had any issues playing with Tom Brady? I mean, obviously, Aaron Hernandez, I mean, we all know what that situation ultimately regressed into. We get that part. That's a special circumstance. But outside of that, what have we seen? Antonio Brown has been a model citizen playing with Tom Brady. He hasn't caused any trouble playing with Tom Brady. He caused trouble after he was departed and pushed out of New England. But while he was there, I mean, he was just trying to play ball. He comes to Tampa, plays ball. Tom Brady seems to have that kind of effect on people, and we can't ignore that. So I don't disagree with your one-year stuff. I totally understand that. But it's not because I don't trust Antonio Brown with Tom Brady. It's because I don't expect Tom Brady to be playing football after next year. I think next year may very well be his last.
Well, I look, first of all, Antonio Brown's work ethic is legend. You know, that's why he's not the fastest or the most talented we've ever seen or the biggest, obviously, but his work ethic is legend. It's why he is one of the very greatest who ever lived at his best. I would never question that. I'm talking about the off-the-field stuff. And as I recall, Stephen A., this is off the top of my head now, and so much stuff has happened since then. But on his way into New England, he was still texting women with whom there were ongoing allegations and problems, and texting them things that you would say, what kind of a judgment is this? Even if you think you're being set up in some way, like giving him the benefit of the doubt on the facts, right? Why would you text that? But then, given what was texted back and forth, who says you give him the benefit of the doubt, even, right? So, and that was going on while he was in New England. And it looked like his career was saved by that.
Remember, he was sat down for the week, and it was speculation that he would be gone, and that's when he was doing that. I'm talking about when he's been on the field, he hasn't been any problem with Brady. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, but I'm saying, wait, with New England, there were still problems that got him booted. But okay, fine, I have to go back and refresh my memory about the timeline. My point is simply this. I'm not talking about on the field. I'm talking about off the field, locker room, all that stuff. AB has been so sabotaging of himself at times. You brought it up. Keep your mouth closed till when? And you got $20 million, and he couldn't do it, right?
$29 million.
given his 20, what were the circumstances? Because you've gone over this a million times.
If he had shut up, it was on a Thursday, and if he had kept his mouth shut through Monday night into Tuesday, he would have been guaranteed the additional $29 million and couldn't shut up.
Bring AB back
wealth.
1 year
All
at
right,
a time.
fellas. Let's leave it there. We got plenty more to debate here on First Take. When we come back, here's what I got for you. Another year of uncertainty for the Dallas Cowboys and their star quarterbacks.
And a half and almost a steal and a half a game. That he's shooting 40% from three and taking a bunch of them. That he's shooting 85 from the line. All the numbers are there on offense, which is why he's leading the league in PER. Why he's been the best offensive player in basketball this year. I think arguably he's also been the best defensive player in basketball this year. There's no answer for Joel Embiid. There's no answer for him anymore. If he's hitting outside shots and he's posting up, and what can you possibly do? And he's really more of a true big man than anyone. Joel Embiid's the kind of big man whose game translates to any era, obviously including this one. Here's a shock for you, okay? Stephen A., listen to this. Do you know in history who's averaged the most points in history per 36 minutes for their career? Because Michael Jordan, of all retired players, is number one. Kobe Bryant's on the list, so is AD. Kevin Durant's high on the list. James Harden, all the guys you'd expect. But Jordan, of course, as you expect, number one. Points per 36 minutes for his career. When Joel Embiid dropped 50 the other day, guess who was number one all-time career health? Points per 36 minutes. Joel Embiid. Just as a scorer, Stephen A., the dude is insane, and you know what? He's in shape this year. He's in shape. He's running the floor. He's defending, probably, I think, the best defender in the game. That's why he's the MVP right now. And right now, the best big man in basketball.
He is the best big man in basketball right now. He is the front runner for league MVP honors right now. No argument there because Kevin Durant's been out. And obviously, he was my choice up until then. But I will tell you this. You know where I'm going. Resume. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to pick him over Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis just was fresh off of finals, averaging 27 and 9. In the postseason, throughout his career, he's averaged 29 and 11. Okay, this brother, this year right now, he's just shooting up like 29% from three-point range, so he was struggling. You got a championship. Joel Embiid got swept in the first round of the playoffs. Anthony Davis stayed in that bubble for those 96 days and ultimately captured the championship, and then about 2 months later, had to come back and play. So we'll see as the season progressed, if he had stayed healthy, what would have happened. But in terms of their resume and Anthony Davis's versatility, it's not that Joel Embiid can't hit perimeter shots, because we know that he can. But I'm looking at Anthony Davis a little bit better. I think he's more active as a defender on the perimeter than even Joel Embiid is. And I know what he can do defensively in terms of blocking shots and rebounds. He can do just what Joel Embiid can do. So for me personally, for my money, I would look at Anthony Davis and I would say that I would prefer him. Not right now. I understand that Joel Embiid right now looks like the best big man in basketball because he's the front runner for league MVP. He's been absolutely sensational this year, and he deserves all the credit in the world. No question about that. But if I had to pick between him and Anthony Davis, and both of them were at 100%, I would go with Anthony Davis.
Listen, I can't argue the resume point. Can't do it because Embiid came out with injury concerns and they were well-founded.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the 5 years he's played.
But I'm saying part of the question with Embiid, it's chicken or egg. Like, has he not been in shape? And that's one of the reasons for injury problems, like his back, forget about the leg. Or is it that because he is a giant and his body's more prone to that, that leads to a situation where he's not in as good a shape? I can't compare his career resume to AD. AD's been better over his career. But I can say that right now, Embiid is in shape. He's in the best shape I've seen him. And this is the fulfillment of the potential when he was originally drafted. Like, oh, my God. Stephen A., he's the only, if he can play like this, if he can sustain this, think of the perfect center. Has it really existed? I'm talking about a guy who could do everything. Not a slim power forward / center dude, but a guy who can bang down low, who's over 7 feet, who's big and strong, who's got, by the way, who's a willing passer, who's unstoppable scoring inside and out, and who can really defend in the modern NBA. Embiid's the only one. He's the only one who checks every single box. Think of all the centers who've ever played who's checked every single box like this version of Embiid.
Yeah, give me a chance to respond. The point is that I think as a big man, there's no question about it. A big man, but when you look at today's game, unfortunately, they're all labeled big men. And so when you're talking about Joel Embiid, you're talking about that quintessential prototypical big boy. Back to the basket, put your backside on somebody, post them up, take it to the hole, and finish the job. Yeah, that's Joel Embiid. But unfortunately, over the last several years, we've looked at the big man, and the big man position has evolved to a point now you could be like that slim, lanky, power forward that just happens to be playing the 5 and what have you. I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I'm saying the versatility of Anthony Davis out on the perimeter and what he's capable of doing in the interior and outside on the perimeter on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I think I would give him the edge. But when you talk about that prototypical big man, back to the basket, drop step, be a man amongst boys, you're the big boy and you play that way, like Shaq loves to say. Joel Embiid clearly is that guy. No doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. As far as MVP conversation, Joel Embiid trails only LeBron James as best odds to win MVP this season. Max, I know he's your pick, so we shall see. When we come back, we got more hoops to talk about. LeBron James isn't feeling sorry for himself, fellas, but should he be? Is he playing too many minutes to really make a run into the playoffs? We debate that, and it's another year of uncertainty for the Cowboys and their star quarterback. So should this be Dak's last year with Dallas if he's franchise tagged again? We get into it. Ron?
I'm resting now. I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I'm resting when I get in my car and head home. I'm resting when I get home. I'll rest tomorrow. I think this whole narrative of LeBron needs more rest, or I should take more rest, or I should take time here. It's become a lot bigger than what it actually really is. I've never talked about it. I don't talk about it. I don't believe in it. We all need more rest. Shit. I mean, this is a fast turnaround from last season, and we all wish we could have more rest. But, I'm here to work, and I'm here to punch my clock in and be available to my teammates.
There he is, Big Perk, gracing your screen. How are we doing, Perk? Always good to see you. I'll get to you in a minute, sir. I'm going to start with Max Kellerman. Max, what do you think? Should the Lakers be worried? Because it's pretty early for him to be playing these type of minutes.
First of all, Perk, why don't you smile with your whole face? That smile looked like the hardest thing anyone had to do. Let me see a smile. That was like a scowl smile. Can't you ever come on here and be happy? Happy to see your boys? Don't play it off like you're not happy to see me. Knock it off. That's the first thing. Look at that. The second thing is this. The LeBron James, there it is. The LeBron James situation is a bunch of overlapping issues. The answer is yes, they should rest him more. But let me tell you why. There are a bunch of reasons. Number one, it's his effectiveness as he plays right now. It's gone down a little bit as his minute load has increased, which is the case with a lot of players, but particularly a guy in his 18th season who no one's ever had the status of LeBron in terms of where he ranks among the elite players this many minutes and this many miles into their NBA season. Every time he takes the floor, he's setting a new record. He's breaking his own record. So we don't know how that aging process is going to go or what to expect. But we do know that if you play a dude a ton of minutes, usually it can fatigue him. And LeBron's effectiveness recently has gone down a little bit. Not a whole lot. He's still great. Of course, he's LeBron James, but a little bit. The second thing is this. Lakers got their eyes on the prize, and boy, they better. They better hope AD comes back and healthy, and that's going to be a whole lot to get by that Nets team if that team really starts playing defense the way they've been playing. They're going to need LeBron at his very best. What he learned in Miami, after Miami going to Cleveland, is I can't play both ends of the floor like I did in Miami and get to the finals every year as I get older and still be just as effective. So he learned how to manage that a little bit. And then AD challenged him to be more intense on the defensive end, and he did. But again, this is all happening, the greater intensity on the defensive end than in Cleveland from an earlier point in the season. The more minutes and everything at an unprecedented old age in terms of the number of minutes he's played in the NBA. So there's that effectiveness now and effectiveness to win a championship, which is the point. And then thirdly, and Stephen A., you want to latch on to this, is only one of the three reasons. Of course you're concerned about injury at his age, given the number of miles he's played, given the pounding he takes, given the physical freak that he is. Of course, the more minutes you play, the more apt you are to wind up with an injury. And hopefully not, but it's possible, catastrophic one. All three of those reasons tell me, I know AD is out, the temptation play him more minutes. I think the Lakers should pull back a little.
I'll tell you something, I've been very, very blessed in my career. Obviously, I've signed on with ESPN for years to come, and I'm very, very happy about that. I'm living quite well. But every time I listen to you talk, particularly about an athlete that has been around for a while and how age and attrition and reason for concern and their injuries. I look at ESPN and I just want to say to the bosses, I think I should get paid more just for having to listen to you in this drivel. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, you're the guy, as Perk, I told him at the top of the show, 4 years ago, because he started on July 25th, 2016, and he sat up there and said that Tom Brady would be done. He's going to fall over a cliff and whatever. Tom Brady proceeds to go to 4 Super Bowls over the next 5 years and win 3 of them. Okay, and it took about that long for Max to admit that he was wrong, or right before the Super Bowl. And now here we are talking about LeBron James. LeBron James is 36 years of age. He is in his 18th season in the league, but it's Dennis Schroeder that's hurt, and it's Anthony Davis that's hurt. LeBron ain't missed a game. LeBron came into the season complaining about the short window that they had before restarting the next season after finishing the bubble in October, and still has not missed a game. Okay? I think Steph Curry has missed games. I think Russell Westbrook has missed games. I think C.J. McCollum clearly has missed games. Nurkic has missed games. Stars throughout the league have missed games. except LeBron James. LeBron James, 18 years, 36 years of age, who's known for spending more than $1 million on his body, and we see why. I'm trying to figure out why the hell ain't nobody else duplicating what he doing. I want to know the damn formula. I don't have that money, but damn it, I want to know what he's doing so I can at least invest something. I mean, my God, this is if there's ever a person to listen to when it comes to their body, what level of fatigue might be, might be injected into the equation or lack thereof, it would be him. Now, if you want to point to something, point to the 63% shooting for the free throw line. Point to the 16% over the last 6 games. Point to the 16% shooting from three-point range over the last 6 games. Point to that. I'm with you. But I'm not concerned about LeBron's fatigue. I'm not concerned about him getting tired or anything like that. You know why I'm not concerned? Because LeBron James told me don't worry about it. That's why. And he has a resume that says, let him worry about it. Because he knows his body better than most, and he takes care of his body practically better than anybody. I think he deserves that respect, and he deserves all of us standing the hell down and saying, defer to him. If he needs rest, he'll let us know. He did it with after he took the paleo diet years ago, and he needed a couple of years to leave and depart for South Beach or wherever the hell he went for a couple of weeks
Yeah.
because that diet had messed with him. See, he took that time off because he recognized, yo, I'm not feeling right. It's the only time he had ever done that in his career, okay? So let's listen to him and defer to him. He would know, and he has the credentials that proves he can be trusted to do just that.
And look, Stephen A., you're absolutely right. But here's the problem that I have, right? Max, we come on here and you come on here and you talk about, oh, yeah, LeBron James, he should take time off. But excuse me, last time I checked, didn't LeBron James just commit to the Lakers and sign a 2-year, $80 million extension, $40 million a year? So that goes to show me that he's saying, you know what? Y'all paid me this money that I deserve, but I'm going to hold my end of the bargain up, and I'm going to go out there and perform at a high level every single game and do my job and punch in the clock. Let's give him credit for that because he's not hurt. So why sit out if you're not hurt just to say you have rest?
I'm not saying sit out, Perk.
What are you saying?
I'm not saying sit out. I'm saying pull back the minutes a little bit. No. I'm not saying load management. I'm saying he was, according to McMenamin's article on ESPN.com, 43rd in minutes played throughout the season until this month. And now I think overall he's like 3rd in the league, and he's led the league in minutes played this month. I'm not talking about sitting out. I'm talking about pulling back the minutes a little bit.
Listen. Frank Vogel can't afford to pull back the minutes right now, especially with Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder being out. If he pull out the minutes right now, guess what? The Lakers will really be getting smacked by 50. They cannot afford to have LeBron James off the court for an extended period of time. They have no one else that's at the guard and wing position that can create for themselves and can create for others. He has to do everything. He's 80% of their offense. So, no, I don't agree with you on that. Now, what I will say, can he play better? Yes, but you have to get the right pieces around him, and I think the Lakers dropped the ball this offseason, although I did praise them for picking up Montrezl Harrell. But I think that they truly miss JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard right now. No knock on Marcus Gasol. I think he had a wonderful career, defensive player of the year in Memphis, but he's just not it no more. Defensively, he can't guard the pick and roll. He can't anchor a defense no more. He's not a rim protector. When you look at LeBron James and you look at why his numbers are dropping, it's because of the simple fact that he is used to running a high pick and roll with a dynamic roller, an athletic big that is a live threat at the basket so that you have to pick and choose your poison. Now he's having to go a lot more isolation where teams are able to load up on him and take away driving gaps. and things to that nature. He's having to do more without Anthony Davis. But should the Lakers cut back on his minutes? Hell no. They need to be cutting up and increasing his minutes because they need to get a win.
Well, you know what? The last part, because he did play 43 minutes last night, I think that's a little bit too much. But then again, I don't care because it's LeBron James, and whatever it takes to win, he'll do. I will tell you this, though. Your point is incredibly valid about JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, because when LeBron attacked the rim, you had to worry about him lobbing passes to those brothers, okay? Because the one thing that they could do was finish at the basket with an alley-oop. You don't really have to worry about that right now. So because of that, you have interior defenders able to key on him and force him to do more than he's accustomed to, than he really should have to do, or that he's accustomed to doing at least over the last year or so, because the Lakers had the personnel where they just lob it up and cats would finish at the basket. Not only that, they limited you to one shot because they crashed the boards and they rebounded. That's not the case this year with the Lakers as well. Yeah. And so it's problematic because other people are getting additional bites at the apple because they're not grabbing boards the way that they did last season. Obviously due to health reasons and the absence of McGee and Dwight Howard.
There's no debate there. I mean, Gasol looks a little cooked, as you point out, and Dwight Howard was just an active defender. He was much more active, and I agree that they missed that. But I want to get back to LeBron James and why you peel back the minutes. You pull back the minutes a little bit. Stephen A., you acknowledge 43 probably a little too much. Number one, I think he becomes less effective, as any player does, past a certain number of minutes, particularly at his age. And you bring up the fact that you trust LeBron, Stephen A., and for good reason. Some dudes are different. Not only genetically different, but they take care of themselves differently. I think of like Cal Ripken Jr. in baseball, had the consecutive games played streak. At shortstop, no less, right? Like, he's just different. LeBron is like that. I get it. But that doesn't mean because your track record is one thing that you can't, that you like just ignore the kind of attrition that takes place on the other hand. The fact is, he's in uncharted territory. As I said, we don't know the effect of it. And when you talk about Kobe, and we argued about this earlier in the show, Kobe took fanatical care of himself. There's no doubt about it. And at a certain point, Stephen A., we won't get into the why he played it or whose decision it was, because that's a separate debate. But what's facts is he played over 40 minutes a game for like 2 weeks and then suffered a catastrophic injury. And the injury issue is just one part. The other thing is LeBron, yeah, he wants to hold up his end of the deal. But the short-term incentive to keep the team afloat now, you don't want that to come at odds with the long-term, which is to be fresh enough that there's gas in the tank to win the whole thing. That's what the Lakers are really there for.
Yeah, that's what they're there for. But, Max, they have to get to the long term. And right now, they're not playing inspiring basketball. And right now, they're desperate for a win. Yes, I'm saying it. They are desperate for a win. Look at the last two games, Max. This is what I'm telling you. Put us back on the 3 blocks. I need to see Max's face when I'm talking to him right now. I need to see his face. Okay, there you go. This is what I'm telling you. This is what goes to show me that you haven't watched the last 2 games. Because you're sitting up here telling me, like last night, that he played 40-plus minutes. They went into overtime. They couldn't afford to take LeBron James off the court.
Because he missed the free throw.
Yeah, but okay, cool. But they couldn't afford to take him off the floor. The game before that, it was a possession-by-possession game, went down to the last shot by Alex Caruso, which he missed in the corner. They couldn't afford to take him off the floor. It's no other guy that they could put on the floor, especially while Dennis Schroeder is out, that's going to be able to create and be that ball handler and run the offense. That's all I'm telling you, Max.
All right. We're leaving it there.
Yeah.
Again, LeBron averaging the most minutes in the NBA. Big Perk, always a pleasure. Next time, bring on Stone. I want to see him. He's got the real mean mug down, all right? That's what we're waiting for. Get the ratings up here on First Take. All right, we'll talk to you soon. You stay safe down there. Let's get into some NFL guys before we say goodbye. The NFL franchise tag window begins today. Teams have until March 9th, 4 p.m. Eastern to place that tag on their most valuable player. Once again, Dak, a target for the NFL franchise tag going into the 2021 season. He could be the second quarterback to be franchise tagged second year in a row. We know the other is Kirk Cousins. Let's bring in my guy, Luis. Where is he? Louis, there he is, Louis Riddick.
Yeah.
Monday Night Football
pull up the
fame.
3 box so I can see Max when I'm talking to him. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
I
We saw you on Get Up this morning.
Actually, I want to.
Be very good
Actually, I want
looking.
to see
Everyone wants
Stephen
to
A's
see me.
face too. Yeah, I like that.
Nah. You did.
All right,
You
you
did
got
with
it all.
Max.
I'm
Don't
going to
want none
come
of
to you
this.
here first, Lewis, since I asked the guys this earlier. Lewis, tell me this. What do you think? Should this be Dak's last year playing under the franchise tag if they tag him again his last year in Dallas?
It will be his last year in Dallas, Molly, if they tag him and they don't strike a long-term deal, because in 2022, they just won't be able to afford him. Look, Dak's going to win here regardless of how this turns out. Whether he's either going to cash in for $70 million over 2 years, or they're going to wind up offering him some kind of deal that probably comes in right around 40 per year, 5 years, $200 million, something like that in order to get him long-term, or he's going to hit the free agency market in 2022, and he's going to cash in then. Either way, look, it's this. No long-term deal this year. In a year's time, Dak is gone. Long-term deal this year, then they're rolling. Then they just have to figure out how to manage the rest of their roster. But you know what? The head-scratching part about all this is that we're even talking about, whether or not that Dak Prescott could be a part of the Dallas Cowboys in a year from now, in a calendar year from now, because it really doesn't make any sense. And if really the sticking point to getting a long-term deal has been the number of years in the contract, I mean, that really is just an egregious mistake on the part of the Dallas Cowboys, because ultimately the longer you play this out, the more the leverage has shifted to the player anyway. So you probably should have gone ahead and relented and given in to him in the first place, or jacked up the average per year in the guaranteed money on a 5-year deal to the point where he would say, hey, you know what, forget about 4 years. I'll take this 5-year deal, and just make him one of the highest paid players. Either way, Dak's winning. Dak's going to continue winning. And right now, Dallas is probably in full-blown panic mode.
Go ahead, Mac.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Lewis, which is why I would say, hell no, this shouldn't be Dak's last year in Dallas. If they franchise him, he's winning. I mean, he'll have gotten, as soon as he signs the franchise, that's $70 million in 2 years, guaranteed. He got hurt last year early, got his whole almost $2 million. If he got hurt early again this year, he gets the whole $37 million. That's $70 million, and he barely even played if that were to happen. And then he's set up for over 50 next year if they wanted to franchise him again, which counts all against the cap that year, because you can't prorate it like you can the signing bonus in a long-term deal, which the Cowboys can't afford to do. So that means at that point, Lewis, his price went up. If they franchised him this year, and right now we know where this is going, if he wants 3 at 40 a year, they're going to have to give it to him. But that's today's price tag. Tomorrow's price tag is significantly more, because if they imagine I'm going to sign this right here. I count like 20-something% against your cap, and I got 54 million coming this year. So why would I now sign a 3-year deal for $120? No, it's more than that. So that means the Cowboys have no choice. What's bizarre to me about all this, Stephen A., is the Cowboys have sort of negotiated against their own best interest here. Like at a certain point in the negotiation, you have to look and go, it's only going to get worse from here. And yet their behavior is irrational, because every step they take makes Dak more expensive. They're paying Dak more by doing this. I don't get it.
For me, we can throw out all the numbers, and we all know it. We have a research department that gives us a lot of this stuff. Plus, we do our own research. We know that he's going to count $37 million if they franchise tag him. Obviously, if they franchise tag him for a second consecutive year, going into year 3, he's not going to be there, because you can't franchise tag him again, because he's going to cost him over $50 million. He's going to take up about 20% of the cap. We know all of that, okay? Here's what resonates with me. And I said this, and I know it makes people uncomfortable. I don't give a damn. It does not matter to me. If this were Tony Romo, would we be having this conversation? Chances are no. We saw Dak Prescott in 2019. He threw 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He completed better than 65% of his passes. The last 3 years, 67%, 65%. This year, 5 games in, or 4.5 games before he got hurt, he was completing 68% of his passes. He was flat out balling. They were one of the top 3 offenses in the league when he was playing. When he went down, they nosedived. We get all of that. And my point is that when you consider that along with the model citizen that he has been, I mean, a virtual umbilical cord to Jerry Jones, during the whole Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem, during the whole social justice issue. Doesn't matter what. This dude has been a model of consistency. He showed up to work. He produced. It was back page news when the dude couldn't make practice one day. He didn't miss the game. but because he missed a practice, it was back page news. Okay, that's how the reliable and trustworthy and productive this guy has been. Not just throwing the football, not even just running the football from the quarterback position, because he's got some wheels on him. His leadership ability inside that locker room, his leadership in the community, the face of America's team, this franchise. And from the time that he walked through the doors and was busting everybody's butt and doing it up in preseason of his rookie year, Jerry Jones was reluctant to hand him then. He's been reluctant ever since. He's been reluctant and hesitant to make a long-term commitment in this guy. And all we do is talk about numbers. No one has looked Jerry Jones in the face and challenged him. Why? If this were Tony Romo, what would you do? Why would this guy? What's the problem? What's the alternative, Andy Dalton? What's the alternative? Where are you going? You saw what Ezekiel Elliott did without him. Last year, we were asking what the hell happened to Ezekiel Elliott. And then we had to reach and look at the offensive line and say, okay, problematic there. We saw their defense nosedive because Mike McCarthy decides to bring in a guy that last time we saw him, he was in Atlanta in 2014 with the 31st ranked offense. But guess what? We weren't talking about it that much when Dak Prescott was in the lineup. Even when they were en route to going 2-3. Why? Because they were averaging over 30 points a game and Dak Prescott was doing his thing. And still there's no contract. Why? Why? Why this guy? Why doesn't Jerry Jones, why hasn't somebody pinned Jerry Jones down to explain that? You got a guy that conducts himself the way that he conducts himself and plays the way that he plays and leads the way that he leads. And let's get this straight. You're talking about, oh my goodness, well, here's the money. And Dak Prescott wants to sign a 4-year deal. You're 78 years old. You ain't won in 25 years, a quarter century. You're 78. You're talking about your own mortality. Time's running out, okay? And at 78 years of age, this man wants to commit to a 4-year deal coming in the last season. And you said, no, we want you for 5. Really? Really? When are we going to talk about this? Why are we just looking at numbers? There's something else going on here, Louis Riddick. There's something else going on here. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, man. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, it doesn't. And look, I mean, all the points that you're making that lead to this question of why hasn't this been done? I mean, when you look at the numbers and you know where they need to be, when you look at the subjective evaluation of Dak Prescott on the football field and what he has done, the objective evaluation of Dak Prescott relative to everyone else and where he should stack up, this really does seem like one of these situations that this should be a simple fix. This should be a simple fix. And I was just talking to people who negotiate contracts for a living before I came on this show and said, hey, and I'm like, look, where does this go from here? Where does this really go from here? Why hasn't this gotten done? And the one thing they reminded me of was this. Look, it always takes 2 to make a deal. It always takes 2. The prevailing, I should say, sentiment out there is the fact that Dallas wanted 5, Dak wanted 4. I just have a hard time believing that it's that 1 year was what kept this deal from getting done. There has to be more to it than that. On somebody's